Anyway, Reince Priebus is here. He is the guy who heads the Republican National Committee, which is a good training ground for being a future Secretary of State if you want it, because you have to get everybody to behave. Reince, very good to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me on, Neil.
During the primary season, you had the pressure and the weight of the world on you, establishment figures in the party who really didn't flip over this guy Trump. You had to, always work at fence building, and you've had to do it since. So there does seem to be a feeling going into this last debate that the party's not all together. That Paul Ryan and obviously Donald Trump are fighting. What is going on?
Well, look, I really don't think they're fighting. I think what you have is some things going. No, listen, I think that there's some things going on that some candidates or some folks out there they weren't on board with. But it doesn't mean that they're not on board with the idea of making sure that Donald Trump becomes the next president and that Hillary Clinton is unfit for the presidency. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And you're right. This wasn't a normal primary season. I mean, it was an unbelievable topsy-turvy endeavor. You're right. I mean, I was in the middle of it, but that's part of being chairman of the party. Part of being chairman of the party.
Did you ever say, though, Reince, that in the case of Paul Ryan, who obviously really turned when the video came out of Donald Trump from 11 years ago, that it might have been wiser for him to think that he wouldn't go out of his way to support him and do events with him than to outright say it?
Well, I think part of that is totally I'm not suggesting you're mischaracterizing anything, but the media mischaracterized the nature of that call. What Paul was affirming to the members of the House.
The Wisconsin event was canceled.
Right, it was canceled, but that was in the light of the Friday night video. Here's what I'm telling you. Paul Ryan's not doing anything different than what John Boehner did. I mean, John Boehner wasn't running around with Mitt Romney.
So his goal is to keep the Republican majority in the House.
That's his job. And he doesn't want Hillary Clinton to be president.
But it is weird not to see him out there with the party's nominee.
It really isn't weird because it's no different than any other Speaker of the House. I can assure you, I was with Mitt Romney a lot, not as much as other people.
Right.
John Boehner wasn't running around the bus with Mitt Romney. John Boehner was worried about keeping the House.
But John Boehner wasn't vocal to the point of saying, focus on your races. You know what I mean?
Understood.
Language is everything.
Listen, understood.
Right.
But listen, this is coming down to 3 weeks.
Right.
We have a binary choice in this election. Donald Trump's a far better choice than Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton's been tested. She's been tested on foreign policy. She's been tested.
Well, how much will this move the needle, you think, Reince, tonight? I mean, what has to happen?
Well, I think it's an important night. I think it's an important night for both candidates to set the table for the next 2.5 weeks, 20 days, 19 days, whatever we've got left. But I think it's also important for Donald Trump to make sure that he pivots and reminds the American people that in all of these areas, whether it be trust, whether it be cybersecurity, foreign policy, she's been in the middle of these issues and she's failed. Whether it be Obamacare, single payer, she's failed.
Do you think if Trump were to hit those issues, Reince, and get out of this talk of a rigged system, he'd be better off? Or do you agree with him that it's a rigged system?
Well, I think that it's important for him to hit these issues and pivot to Hillary.
Now just arriving on the debate site, but go ahead, Reince.
I think it's important that he hit those issues and pivot. But look, the media has been outrageous.
No, but that's not what he said. Actually, most people concur that it is a tilted media coverage.
That's the main focus of what he's talking about.
But you don't think the voting is rigged,
well, wait a second. Well, here's what I do think. I mean, I've dealt with voter fraud my entire life. Right. I mean, the Milwaukee, I grew up in Wisconsin. The Milwaukee Police Department put out a 70-page report about voter irregularities and things that are happening and failing in Milwaukee. Now, if voter fraud was a figment of everyone's imagination, then why is the police department putting out a report?
Do you think that's something a presidential candidate should say before the vote, to say, or more or less intimate, that if I lose, it's because it was a rigged system, not because I was the lesser
I don't think he's saying if I lose, it's because it's a rigged system. I think what he's saying is it's a rigged system.
That he would congratulate Hillary Clinton?
I think so.
You do?
I do. But what I'm suggesting to you is he's trying to point out the fact that in many places around this country, there's cheating that goes on. Our party position is we want to make it easy for people to vote, but hard to cheat. If cheating wasn't going on, tell me why many states are passing laws for voter identification and vote registration. Why?
But I hear what you're saying, but Democrats have interpreted that as trying to rig the system your own way.
So I'm not, as a Republican, going to sit here on a show and now declare that suddenly voter fraud doesn't occur, because it does. And I'm not saying it's to the point of actually...
The rig that you address, just to be clear, is more or less the way that it's covered. We're by and large, you're on safer ground saying that, because There is a disparity in the way.
That's why I think, right? That's why when you ask me the question, I try to break it down and explain.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Right, it's great to see you again.
Thank you.
Best of luck. It's been a late night. This guy's had no sleep. It's been a long, long time. It's tough on both sides. Remember, it is a
look that bad.
you look worse. Actually worse. I just didn't have the heart to say. Kidding.
Much appreciated.